right. Good morning, good afternoon. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
2018.
Welcome. This is it.
Here we are. I had no idea we'd live this long.
Well, we keep going.
Yeah,
we keep
do.
going. Into the void.
I'm Paul Tran here with Justin, the one and only Justin Mezzell. We kind of pulled him in, sucked him in.
Thanks for
put him
having
in
me.
Studio.
I appreciate it.
Super happy to have you here. In fact, the whole gang's here, just kind of behind the scenes working away. So this is really fun. Our first stream of the new year, and it's going to be fantastic. It's good to see you, Laura and Chuck and Vanessa and Alexander and Kevin Schneider as well. I see some familiar names. Good to see you guys. Awesome. We got a full day today. This is going to be really fun, by the way. Justin, definitely thank you for coming. I'm glad we get to spend 2 hours with you and some other people. So we'll just kind of reveal the schedule for you today. Just a shout out to all these awesome designers and illustrators we have going on. So basically, this week we got some pretty cool kids in the house. Justin for the first 2 hours. Julia Zoavo is going to be up at 11 a.m. as well with Kathleen. We have Marley Gallardo with me as well. Does really cool. All vector today, by the way. Sarah Bell does more sort of map topography type stuff. So I think we kind of have a cool gamut of vector illustration that we'll cover from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So hang out with us, Laura and Matthias. I'm not sure where it is or what time it is wherever you are. Always curious as to where people are from, by the way. We're here in beautiful San Francisco. You can see
It is beautiful today. It's not sunny, or it's not raining anymore. Yesterday was raining all day, so it was a real good welcoming party. But yeah, glad to be here. It's fun actually being in the studio because so much of streaming is usually like in a bedroom somewhere, in a dingy closet where I'm like kind of
like the quietest place you can find.
This is different. Being observed by other humans in the vicinity. I like it.
No, this is really good. Laura's from Colombia. It's good to have you guys here. Denmark's in the house. Sweden at 6 p.m. there. So we have people from all over.
I did see Shauna from Orlando. Hey, Shauna. Hey, Orlando.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's where you're, you no longer live there, but did live there.
I did. Still lots of love for Orlando.
Germany, Calgary in the house, Paris, Brazil, north of France. Cool, Netherlands.
This is rad.
Portland, just north of us. So this is super cool. Chuck, thanks for joining us too. All right. And Rufus is in the house. Hey, Rufus. He's my boss. I got to be on my best. Got to be on my best behavior.
Naturally.
But everybody's here, so this is really fun, man. So, we could kind of talk about... By the way, we're going to have giveaways. We could talk about those later. Actually, you know what? I think I might kick off the contest right now just so you can kind of dive into this, if you don't mind. But basically, if you select that contest tab just behind chat, you can see right here, today's challenge is... all about creating an emoji of any type that you want. Really, it's just an emoji. Using that term pretty loosely, but Julia, who will be up next, she does a fantastic job making emojis. You can kind of check hers out. The only criteria is you use Illustrator and then just post to this URL. And in about an hour and a half, we'll check the submissions, and then we'll give away Creative Cloud to our favorites.
Nice.
So you're going to be involved in that because you're going to.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. I want to be objective.
Yeah,
I like it.
This will be good. I'm super happy to have you here, man. Right behind us is your artwork.
Yeah. So this is the city that I do. I don't live in a real big city, but I know what they look like. I've seen them before. I drew that a little while back. It's probably like about 3 years old now. Yeah, but it's vector. It's vector right there. See that?
That is.
I'm motioning, but there's actually a green screen behind us. But in general, this is what it looks like. But yeah, and that's kind of what we're going to be doing today. Sort of my thing that I like doing is largely grid-based vector illustration. So that's what we're diving into today, using some Illustrator to kind of show how we build these kinds of things and some tools, tips, and tricks of the trade. A lot of T's. No,
this is really good. And your work gets pretty complex. I'm actually just scrolling through some on your site. Mm-hmm. This is on justinmezzell.com. So you can see how detailed some of these get. So this is going to be pretty interesting as you kind of dive into this process.
But we're all using like simple geometry to start creating illusions of stuff. So we're going to go through some of that today, like how we create, whether it's like a cylindrical shape or, something with some depth and dimension and sort of just try and highlight that stuff. And then I think as the audience that's here, you can help by asking questions. If you have any sort of questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, by all means, that would be awesome. And again, it's just kind of like you're building upon, I love some of this work. I mean, this is awesome. Are you going to do something kind of like... Where are you heading today?
Yeah, so I was thinking something that would be fun might be doing something that's a bit more, you know, I want to create something that feels geometric and is structural. So I think we literally will create structure. So let's do some sort of buildings, thinking like kind of Blade Runner-esque, kind of like, you know, neo-noir kind of stuff. I think it'd be really fun to do that, but then infuse some other kind of architecture, whether it's like kind of futuristic, but maybe pull from some other cultures, you know, kind of styles, and sort of build like a city of the future that feels a little different, a little alien to maybe what we're used to seeing, rather than just a bunch of skyscrapers. So maybe taking some inspiration from other places.
No,
James
that'd
White,
be cool.
what up?
Yeah, James White's in the house. Hopefully that's the right James White. There could be a couple out there.
Yeah,
but
it's
this
true.
This is our favorite one.
If they're using the Signal Noise logo and they're another James White, that would be
Signal
that's
noise,
contentious.
Exactly.
And Derek, hopefully I'll have some tips for you on how to get better in Illustrator today, but that remains to be seen.
No, man, this is going to be fun. And I think we're going to kind of tackle this kind of from, and somebody was asking about canvas size and different things. So
Good. I got answers.
yeah, and I think we're going to start this, you know, we don't want to leave anybody out. So if you're new to Illustrator, we want to kind of ease you into this. And, you know, even if you're more advanced, we can talk about some advanced tips. But yeah, that's the plan. Does that sound good?
It does. And yeah, hopefully today we are going to be, you know, trying to highlight whenever I do something, you know, command or whatever it is. Hopefully it will appear on the screen. It might not. I'm not sure. But if you don't know what something is and I did something in Glossar, please feel free to ask a question. More than happy to walk back and explain how some of that works.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and even if I guess people have question about some of your other work out here. So justinmezzell.com, Super Team Deluxe. You were showing me this earlier, which I think this is really cool. Just some nice pins. It's nice seeing these sold out.
Goods.
I love this.
Yeah. That's actually my bud, Raji King, who I do the site with. That's him. That's his
So
HUD
it's
buster.
cool. You dabble in all these different areas. So yeah, nothing's off limits as long as it's design related, I guess. Let's not get too personal here.
Yeah. Well, there you
But,
go. Who knows?
awesome.
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I guess we should probably launch Illustrator. To answer your question, yeah, I mean, you know, we basically say use Illustrator. You can start out, I guess, in Illustrator Draw, and you can always sync that to Illustrator if you want to. Just answering that question there. So cool. Oh, Taisha's. Hey, a little golf clap very quietly for Taisha. It's her first live stream, so that's
Welcome.
awesome. So
I hope I don't disappoint you.
yeah, so if you're new here, first of all, we appreciate seeing such familiar names. We got Rob Zilla in the house and everyone, James, and thank you if you're new here as well, Taisha. So we're gonna have to share your screen here, buddy.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you better
that's great.
switch-
I
you
kept
better
it. I kept it really vanilla. Right? It's just the Google logo right now, because this is actually where a lot of my work begins, which is sort of like, okay, we're gonna build something. We want a reference of some sort. This is like, but usually before I'm even in Illustrator, it's like, all right, maybe we'll do like a cityscape or something like that, and so we'll pull that up and just start looking. So for me, I do a lot of reference while I'm building. Like I want to be able to see pictures, which is what's really great about Illustrator. You can take images from here, slap them onto the artboard over here. We'll go ahead and open up Illustrator as well.
And let's be honest, like you were actually on 2017, and now you're on sort of the latest version.
I did just update to the 2018 2 nights ago, and I'm hoping that nothing is really going to trip me up. But this, we'll just see.
Well,
see.
it's good. It's good to. It's
Updates
good to
are
kinda-
good, yeah.
No, they really are, man. You're gonna by the end of the 3 days, you're gonna see. Yeah, this is a good thing.
And for those of you who are asking a little bit about canvas size, this is probably a good time to talk about that. So when it comes to the canvas, couple things. I work in grid based for the most part, so like a grid informs my visual economy is the way I would probably say it. So basically, grid points are elements that I can draw on. I try not to break that too often. So for me right now, because we are working in vector, I don't know what the size is going to be, but that is quite all right. It doesn't really matter if I know or not, because in Illustrator for me, I don't really use the artboard as something really. It exists. It's an abstract concept. So for me, I'll just do 800 because I work in eighths.
800 by 800.
So basically, we've got right here this grid, and that grid, you know, it's
How did you
set
turn
up.
that on?
Yeah, so when we turn that on, we do command, and we do comma, or maybe it's apostrophe, right? The one in the air is apostrophe.
Yeah.
Yes, command apostrophe, and that toggles my grid on and off. For me, I'm not really going to be using the artboard in that way. Oh, and you may not be able to see it unless I zoom in. There are like even smaller points Maybe we just can't on that screen. But there are like smaller points. And so for me, I usually keep this kind of toggled off the artboard. And so if you Command Shift H, you can see now all of a sudden it's gone. It doesn't exist. And for me, that's really helpful because I'm not really using the artboard as much. Hopefully the city kind of like explodes out of the space. I don't want it to really be contained by anything. Artboards can be really useful, but just for, all intents and purposes on this one, we're not. We're also gonna,
Yeah, no, this is good. And then actually, how do you have that grid divided up?
Okay, so yeah, I did set this one up a little different maybe than the default is. So if you go to Illustrator, we go to our preferences, we go to guides and grid. I do grid line every 80 points with 10 subdivisions. And this is pretty important for how we're gonna be working for a few reasons. For me, like I said, it does inform like an economy of scale while I'm working on these things. But ultimately what we really want is we want every one of the boxes on the grid to be 8 pixels. And the reason why we want that is, yes, right now we're gonna be working in a vector environment, so it doesn't really matter what size it is. But if the default that you have is, let's say 5, let's say you were to export it at like 50%, now all of those are gonna be like aliased half pixels. And so for us, 8 is just a really divisible number. Yeah. So it's like, 8, and we got 4, and we've got 2, and we've got 1. And so it's just a really nice way to work for me that I really appreciate, because it also means that if every one of these is 8 points in a box, we can half the box, and then we can, split it and now have 4 across, so.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
They're asking actually why it's white, and you have Illustrator Premium. That's why it's white. It's Illustrator Premium. It's a new version of Illustrator.
Yeah, it's dipped
you
in
might
ivory.
not have it. Yes.
Yeah, it's a real special one.
No.
You can change that.
Can you make it? I don't know. Is it too bright? How's it looking? Everybody's look good? Is it all right?
I mean,
just right there.
Yeah, right here. You can go make it different colors. Look at all that.
Is that easier on the eyes? Is the lighter?
Yeah, is that right? I will tell you, I'm usually opposed to the dark interface, but
this is
I will do it for you. I'll do it for you, though. I don't mind. I don't mind. Let's do it.
I'm just kidding, Carolyn. There's no premium version of Illustrator, by the way. So I'm just joking with you guys.
Okay, better, fine. I do want to let you know I will work in the dark one for the audience, but after this, I'm switching right back to the light version.
Switching right back.
Just want you to know. Let's just get it out there. All right. Cool. So the hardest thing of any piece of illustration that you're going to do, laying that first kind of pixel right here. What's really easy about it, though, it's a vector point. We can scale it as much as we want, but it does inform kind of the size of things. So, couple tips before this: just do it. That's really it. Just lay your first point. So we've got a building. Let's say that we're going to do. Let's say it's a rectangular building. One thing that we're using that's a little different that we probably want to highlight is we are going to snap to the point. And you can get that from view, snap to point. And what that means for us is while we're illustrating, hopefully you can see this, when we click on a point, even if we're like right in the middle, it's actually, whoops, now it's off. Okay, it's actually gonna snap closer to that point right there. I don't know if you folks can see that or if it's a little washed out, but as you can tell, now all the places that I'm dragging are actually a grid point on this grid.
Yeah, that's cool. And then you don't have snap to grid on. Snap to point pretty much does what you need it to do.
Yes, yeah. So it's snap to grid. That's the one. That's the one. Snap to grid. Sometimes you don't remember what it is.
Let me show you something else because I don't know if you're aware of this. Upper left, see that little magnet icon?
Right here? Yep.
Click that. Or do that little drop down. Do that little drop down next to it.
Whoa, I gotta turn it on.
There you go. Okay, this is over. This is fine. So this will like snap while drawing, or even after you're drawing, you can snap things into
that's
on
pretty rad.
Pixels.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Yeah, that's relatively new. So
that's pretty cool.
Even
that is
after
pretty cool.
the fact, you can bring things into place.
Cool. So we've got a couple things that we're going to work through right now. Because we are snapping to the point and we are going to do some buildings, let's talk about something that's really important when we start doing some of these more simple geometric stuff. That's going to be like lighting and shadow. So we got to figure out right now, like, where is the light source that we're going to be working with? So let's say we have, the default is right here, you've got a fill, and then you've got a stroke as well. And just to draw a shape so that we understand how that kind of works. Right here. So the fill is what's inside, that's the white, and the stroke that we have around it is just this line, this border that sticks on the shape itself. For what we're doing now, we're actually going to toggle off by pressing this, and we can switch this over so that we've just got a fill right here. And let's say this is kind of the front of our building. Maybe it's a side. And let's say we have another one right here. I'm gonna move this a little bit. And as you can tell, all of our elements right here are plotted on points in the grid. So if you look, we can press the outline mode by pressing Command Y. And now you can see the shapes that we've drawn and sort of how it's working right now on the grid without any of the fills to get in the way. And we do that sometimes to check just making sure our elements are there. Sometimes you can highlight elements that are behind it if you need to do something like that. No, I just saw that you were my light source, Justin. That was excellent. Anyhow, so I'm gonna move this over to this side because I think what we're gonna do, just to draw it so that we know where it is, we got a little light source that's gonna be hanging out over here. And let's see, just so we know it's light source, we're just gonna make it yellow. More pretty yellow than that.
But this could be futuristic someplace else. Who knows what this thing in the sky looks like?
It's true. It could be multiple suns, which is just more lighting to consider. But for this one, we're gonna do one sun in a weird place. We don't know where it is.
Shout out to John, by the way. I'm just shouting out to all the first time viewers
how's it going?
here, John. And I also
Yeah, I
saw
love it.
Taisha and Carolyn Brown. Welcome.
Welcome.
This is for you guys.
Love it. So what we're gonna do here is, I think it'd be really fun to start messing around with like some gradient styles in this. So we've got some flat colors that we'll be using, but also some gradients. I think that would be a really cool way to do it. So one of the things that we might do, I'm trying to think of how I want to build this. Maybe for the structures themselves, we won't actively use like gradients on them, but maybe for the windows, so that we have a sort of like sheen on them, maybe we'll use some gradients in place of that. So here's a cool thing that when I'm an illustrator, I'm not usually all that concerned with like how perfect my colors are at this stage in the game. We do some like, color grading and some post-processing in Photoshop usually afterwards for my workflow, just to kind of like correct any colors that maybe fall outside of it. And also I think you can just get really kind of tied up in the process of selecting the colors and making sure they're perfect while you're in this stage. And for my workflow, I prefer to just kind of wing it as I go. So we've got this little shape right here. Here's like, if this is a building in this central area, there's a lighted area on this side. This face is in the dark. So what I would probably do now is like start figuring out, all right, what's like a base color that I want, like a building. So maybe I'm gonna do this one as like kind of like a purple sort of color. And I'm gonna move this over. And what I used right there, just to highlight, is we've got this right here, which is a direct selection tool. Obviously, when you draw a rectangle, you've got like 4 points on there. What the direct selection tool allows me to do is I can either grab a point and start manipulating it like that, or I can highlight a point and start manipulating it in the same way. What I did right here is I just kind of came down, grabbed this little area, and just started moving it over using my left and right keys. And that's just kind of lets me get obviously a little bit of a different face on there. So now let's do the other side of this building. Again, I'm not really sure what the colors are here. I just grabbed from this. I'm not even sure where those were from. And then I'm gonna go work in HSB, which is our hue, saturation, and blackness level right here. Is it blackness? Brightness?
Both
brightness.
works.
Yeah,
I've always thought brightness, but
I think brightness is it, because 100% is the lightest version. That's what it is. And so what this allows me to do now is I can go in here, maybe saturate it a bit more on this side, maybe drop the light value a bit.
And we were talking last night, you don't stress too much about color, do you?
I don't, especially like at this stage. Like it is what it is. I might want to make this like a little more saturated over here. But when you do that, it is going to get a little bit darker, so you might want to, pull up that brightness a bit. And yeah, like something like this is like just kind of ballpark. It's probably pretty close to where I want to be. And then maybe we'll draw like a little window in here. So now this is the part where we do need to do some figuring out in terms of like, I don't need to be perfect colors, but I want it to look good enough that it's like, it's not going to hurt my eyes while I'm working on it. So now what I'll do is I'll go over here to these gradients. And once you open this little gradient tab, if you just click it, now it's an active gradient right here. So the fill is like that.
I had no idea.
So we're gonna move this and we're gonna do 90 degrees because that means now it's gonna go from top to bottom. And so we've got this little area right here. And you can select the colors by clicking on these little squares right there. And maybe we'll do, again, I'm not sure what these are. Oh yeah, huh?
I was just
yeah.
Bink.
And maybe I kind of want a little more green in that just to make it a little more interesting.
Adjust it.
And then maybe right here, so I'll build from that same original color here, but now let's go in here. Maybe go into the hue, saturation, brightness, and just start kind of changing some of these values.
This seems like a go-to window color though, huh?
I mean, it does. I've definitely worked with it as windows before.
I mean, it totally works. Mm-hmm. It's like tealish green.
Exactly. I mean, and it's like I kind of want a little more green, maybe.
I like the colors.
Yeah, it's feeling fun. It's feeling fun. And so because we're working on these grid points here, this is where we can start figuring out like how much fine detailing does everything get in this. So if I'm like, well, I want to do a little bit more dimension, maybe highlight some more things, I might just drag this out a little bit more. And obviously we use that A selection right here, and we're able to grab multiple objects at the same time. You can see right here are the points that we grabbed. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'll grab this window and I'll hold Shift as well as Alt and or Option and just move this over. And what that does is it duplicates it. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want another one over here. So now we've got sort of this brighter face of the building right here, and then one that's in shadow. And this is usually where I'll now start figuring out, okay, so we've got a side of the window that's in a little darker area. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this point and I'm gonna duplicate it by holding Alt again. And now I've got another one. I'm gonna get rid of this one by just clicking on it and dragging it off.
Pro tips in here too, by the way.
This is it. This is it.
I like this.
And then I'm going to grab this top one, and I'm going to find another color for it to have a darker one.
Yeah, it looks good, man.
Yeah, maybe make it a little more blue. I find like gradients are super interesting to me visually when you're able to like change the color. So it's like, yes, we could have just done a blue to a lighter blue, but to me, it's a little more interesting to do like a darker green to a lighter blue because we're changing that hue. And I think it just feels a little more dynamic and interesting in those moments.
I think you're right. And you're not just messing with the brightness, and you know that like shadows aren't just adding black to something.
Yes, exactly.
So that's good.
Yeah, in the same way, I don't often work with like a pure white or anything. Like we always kind of want to tint it with something that kind of makes it feel a little bit different. We're not using blending modes right now. There might be some instances where we will start using them as we kind of develop a little more interesting light sources. But usually I do want kind of like a base structure of some colors that we're working with.
And you actually kind of do your finishing process by bringing this into Photoshop.
I do,
right? Mm-hmm. Which I think is
really
cool.
And that, of course, corrects the colors.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do here is we want this window to be like slightly inset. We've got a little bit of an angle, so the building is kind of turned a little bit. And now we want to see like a little bit of an inset area. So what we'll do is I'll just draw a little rectangle here. Take this, whoop, and look at that sometimes. There you go. And now we've got this like little bit that kind of nudges out a bit optically, and that's kind of how it's feeling. And we might decide, well, I also want like a little bit of a shadow cast on here. So if I were to grab that, and this is something to work with too. So if you've got a gradient and you were to hold Shift when you have your eyedropper, and we should probably explain the eyedropper. Mm-hmm. The eyedropper is when we have an element right here and we use this, so we can just draw a new one here. When we use the eyedropper by pressing I, what it's doing is it's sampling the color at the point that we're clicking. So right here, I can make it yellow. If I want to do that, you know, I can change it up however I want. But for right now, maybe I'm kind of thinking, all right, I want a shadow. It's got to be a little bit darker than this. So maybe I'll go over to this side and just start sampling some colors until I see one that I like. Cool. So now we got like a little bit of a shadow as it kind of sticks right there.
Yeah, Andreas, we'll show new features when it kind of comes to that. But this is really
Paul's
good.
good about highlighting some of the new things that I don't know. Because that's the thing is like with any tool, you might only be working within your normal workflow like 15% of the tools. So it's always really cool when you have somebody who knows how to do something a little bit different because especially in Illustrator, there are so many ways to do these things. And so, you know, that's what's cool about working with other people.
It is. But it's also good. You're just covering the fundamentals. And most of it's like fundamentals.
Sure.
The basics, sampling colors, sampling, making sure you're staying within the same palette because you're sampling from that mid gradient or something, making it a little darker. See, Ben, you're pretty good with colors, man. I feel like last night you were like, yeah, I do colors
like
later. It just looks really good. So.
I appreciate it. We're definitely going to change it. It's not going to stay this color. So let's just keep that in mind. Now we can also start doing some things too where we figure out, all right, well, we've got this building. It's a little plain. Is there something that we could do to, you know, kind of start like changing it a little bit? So one way that we might do that, add some visual interest is like maybe in the glass, there's another inset part of the glass that goes in a bit more. So what I'll do for this is, again, you could do this with blending modes. If you want to set this here, Well, first let's do our gradient at 90 degrees.
Yeah, and Armando, we're just building a futuristic building, but this is just the fundamentals, like the beginning of it. So I have a feeling as soon as you get this foundation laid, it
We'll
starts
start creating some more
you'll
and more.
Yeah, and it's just like a lot of, I don't know if it means, I don't know, duplicating or whatever, but I feel like you could start to notice some patterns probably once you build out a cityscape.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I think so. I mean, usually it becomes a little easier because every building we'll create after this, we can grab the building, remix it, grab some parts that we like here, add some
whether
new
it's
things.
You're doing recolor artwork or what.
So one of the, somebody had mentioned doing blending modes, and just to kind of show how that works. So right now we've got this new rectangle that we laid over the rectangle behind it. And so we could grab this and go to this transparency area and drop down. And now we've got some blending modes to work with. If you were to ask me how the science works of all these, I don't know, but I know optically kind of how it works here. So if we did like multiply, what that's going to do is all of the dark values, it's going to apply now to the layer behind it. So we've got a solid right there with some colors. We lay a multiply on there. All of a sudden now we've got that being applied to the layers behind it. What that means though, is it means that we could go into here, and it does take hue into account and how it computationally does these things. So if we were to like change this to more of like a purple, some of that purple is going to find its way through, but it is still applying those dark values to the layer behind it. We're going to go back on that by pressing Command Z. And maybe what we'll do is have this little highlight right here. We can grab this. Maybe we want that inset to have a little bit more of a shadow. And let's see, this is kind of where we're fiddling a bit.
Gavin Strange, buddy, welcome. Is Gavin joining us sometime? I don't know, but welcome. He does
Gavin.
Aardman. Yeah.
Yeah, Gavin's
this
awesome.
This is really cool. Shout outs.
And I'm going to move that over a little bit. And so here's one thing that I do every now and then. So because we are working on a grid, obviously every time that I am mousing over with like a cursor direction, I'm going to be going over a full grid point. But if I were to toggle that off right now and press Command Shift apostrophe, now instead of going over 8, because that's how much our little box is, now I'm going over 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's meticulous, but at the same time for me, I like to work in like whole integers at all times. That's like it's a thing for me. And so that enables me to be able to do that. Remind you of Miami Vice? That's a kind word right here. I would love to be the Don Johnson of design. All right, and I'm gonna get a little more blue in that. Let's see if we can make that work a little bit better.
So Cody mentions an emoji. We have an emoji contest. To select the contest tab, which is right behind the chat tab, and make an emoji. Submit it, and you can win Creative Cloud. So that's what's being referenced there.
We're gonna drop the opacity a little bit, by the way. Just a little bit. Make sure it's not so intense.
I like how, so the keyboard shortcuts are popping up in the lower left.
Yes,
by the way.
those are. I can move this up a little bit so it's not so.
That's really handy because you're just like, you are. You're just using your keyboard, using a mouse sometimes. Do you always use a mouse?
I can or I cannot use a mouse.
Yeah.
It's really kind of
the
like
same way.
If I'm on the couch, no. But you know, I like a good mouse to be able to use things.
Demetra, welcome. If you're new here, just say hello. We'd like to know if you're new. We like new people, but also cool seeing the masters here, like some.
And we're gonna do the same thing over here. We just duplicated it, grabbed another rectangle, dropping it there. Although now we get to something fun. So like on this one, where we've got like an inset shadow, we did a darker version because the light is being cast, if you remember, from up here. So now on this one, we haven't done the inset shadow on this. I'm gonna grab this, move this over a point. We're gonna do this right here. We need a lit point right here from that side. And so, will it always be that intense? No, probably not. But again, this is our world. We create the rules for lighting. And it creates a nice dimension to kind of exaggerate some of those sort of things. And that's kind of what we're doing. We can grab this over here, bring it over here if we'd like. It killed you.
No, he's like, look at James. He's quoting you.
Yeah, well, all right.
I think he's razzing you a little bit.
I think he is. I accept it. I really do. So we've got this, and we've got this little guy hanging out here. We've got this little building right here. This is kind of like, usually every time that I'm doing one of these sorts of things, this is a good jumping off point to say, okay, we've got a building now that we can use. We can start remixing the elements. So what I did is I grabbed all of these, and then I pressed Command G. And what that means now is they're working as a group. So every time that I select it, look at that. We got this group now that we can kind of move around. If we want to double click into it, we still have all of those things directly editable. Look at that. You can still do all of that.
And if you just double click on it again, just want to point out the upper left.
Yes.
Technically, everything kind of gets like grayed out a little bit, but yeah, cool.
It's actually really good that you highlight that. I should probably save. Cityscape. All right.
Good
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Where were you? Like, usually in the Twitch stream, I feel like, or when we did streams, I would always have somebody reminding me to save, and at this point, nobody's reminding me to save. So thanks for not looking out for me. One thing that we can do too that I always think is really fun with like little buildings and stuff is I think it adds some cool visuals to start figuring out, like maybe there's like some windows and maybe those windows are kind of like lit. And I'll show you how we would do that. It's kind of like a randomized sort of thing. So maybe I want like the windows to look pretty small. So I'm going to go smaller than an 8x8. I'm going to go up, and you can watch up here in this little top area. You can see the exact size that this is already built at. So it's 8x8, which is one of our grid squares. And we're going to go up and we're going to half that on the height side of things by using our direct selection on the 2 bottom vector points and start moving up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now it is 8x4. And if I want a light to be on, it's going to be a little brighter.
So it's a little light in the little room there or something? Mm-hmm. Sweet.
So you basically have like some lights on in the building. So what we can start doing with that now is just start
Illustrator's lit.
randomly kind of, you know, adding some lights on.
So lit.
So lit. Pretend that there's like a really cool code that we could use. I always thought about that. Like, can you program like a cool code to randomize in here? There's probably some cool script you can
there
run.
are.
Yeah.
There are. Yeah, I actually have one, but
My programming skills are not up to par for that.
I like one. There's my favorite one of my favorite scripts is randomize color. So you could select 5 swatches.
Oh,
and,
yeah?
And 100 items. Select 5 swatches,
Yeah.
and it'll randomly color all of them.
I've done some things with like little disparate little elements and just all by hand. I'm just like kind of moving one here and moving
Yeah, you
one
just
there.
like listen to some music.
Yeah,
and
that's
just-
like me if I'm doing like halftone stuff. I'm just like actually doing it all myself. So we can grab this. Here's a really cool tool that I really love. So we made this little light color right here. There's this button right here up at the very top, and it's select similar objects. And so what that is doing now is it's saying, okay, we've got this element and it's using this color right here, this fill. It is what? C5FFFB. And what all this like select similar object does, it says, okay, all of the objects that have that same style applied to it, grab all of them. So for us, it's all of our lights. Boom. Now we've got all of our lighted windows right here, and we can group them if we want. And this is probably where I'd start kind of walking back a little bit on just how bright it is, maybe going down to 50%. Again, because I do work in whole integers a lot, if you hold shift and you press up and down, you're gonna get integers of 10 right there. And so that feels kind of nice to me.
I think this is really cool. You just adjusted the transparency so it has that nice smooth gradient. I want to just make sure we're answering all the questions.
Sure.
Somebody mentioned something about continuing a gradient across multiple objects. On how do I continue a gradient on different objects? You could select multiple and just do
that's
a
how
gradient.
that's how I would do it. So if we had, let's say we had like I don't know, a piece of this building kind of came out, but it was like a different part of the face on it that had like some interesting spine, and we had, you know, this like window gradient. Well, obviously that ends up doing it so that now it's all separated across there. To my knowledge, I don't know any other way to do it, but like if you were to do 90, it would do this. So what I do is I would press G, which is my gradient, set the point up here, drag all the way down, and then that would be sort of how I'd approach that. I'm not sure if there's another tool. Does anybody know of any other tool that would programmatically do that? I'm not sure.
No, I mean, I think that's why we have the gradient tool. Just select multiple objects and then use the gradient tool. And gradient tool is nice because that way you don't have to be working in the panel. You can actually work on the gradient, add color stops, adjust the angle, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and that is the other thing. Is like, yeah, if you want more control over your gradients, you can totally feel free. Obviously, right now they've got it running from 90 degree from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, that's what I'm
you
talking
can
about.
manipulate
You
that.
roll over that, you can see the different color stops and all that stuff.
Bring it up. You can do all kinds of stuff. It really, I mean, you can go as nuts as you want with that. Another thing that we can do for Windows, and again, this is kind of plug and play. We figure out what's worth doing and what's not. Maybe we want some like light reflections on the window themselves. So because we are working in grid points, it's really nice to be able to do 45 degrees. And the reason why is because when you're holding shift in this kind of program, it's going to snap to a specific direction. So it's in 45-degree intervals. So you've got, straight across, but as we drag down, now it's at 45 degrees. Now it's there. So working in 45 degrees is often a really nice way to make sure that everything is systematized in a really cool way. So what we're going to do is like create this light reflection. Romain, good to have you. Speaking of cool cityscapes, that's right. Such great work. So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a little shine right up there. And I'm going to sample just this color right over here. So it's kind of coming across. Now we wanted to apply a little differently to the inset right here. And the reason why is because there's some dimension, which will kind of pull it down a bit. So what we're going to do is I drew the object, but like that's behind it, and I made it above it. And then I'm going to also select this item. And now we're going to go down to Pathfinder. Pathfinder for me is how I like to do it. There's also Shape Builder. It really just depends on kind of how you want to be able to do those things. But let's illustrate really quick how Pathfinder works. So we've got two objects, and one's green. I'm trying to make it really bright, obviously. So you got a green and a blue. These are two objects. What Pathfinder is doing is it's telling you what the nature of these relationships will do for the button. So this one right here means that we're going to unite those shapes together. This one right here means that the one that's in front is going to be deleted from the one behind it. So you can see right here, now we've knocked that space out. This one right here is the intersection of the shapes is what we'll save, as you can see from right there. And this one right here means that we're going to exclude the middle shape. Bye, James. And as you can tell, that's how that one works. Pathfinder is going to be really helpful for us as we're getting into some more of the like smaller minutia and mechanics of the geometry that we're working with. So for right now, we're going to use this. I just laid this shape over top, and I'll make sure you can see it, of this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to use this Pathfinder to minus the front. So we've got this little area right here. And there's a couple ways that we could handle that. We could just grab, sample the same kind of color that we did over there and create sort of like a light that works diagonally over there. We could also use the same color and go into the blending modes and apply maybe a screen on that. So what it's doing is now kind of like how multiply applies the dark value and it still applies the hues behind it. What screen does for us is it's saying, well, now I'll take all the bright values. We're still going to apply the hues, but it's going to, use that sort of shape. And I would walk it back for sure because that's really intense.
Just taking down the opacity?
Yep, down to, right now we're at 40%. And I would draw a couple more of these. Just so we have something that looks like it's got a little more dynamic lighting. And we'll also cast this one as well on screen. Bring it down to 40. And then I'm also going to knock it out again from this space, and I'll show you why. So we've got these right here. We've got this like little bit of light on there that's kind of like some shine. And so what we want to do is, because the inset one is a little bit of a different face, dimensional face on there, I want to make sure that we see it a little differently. And so an easy way to do that, we can redraw this if we want, just so we know where it comes from.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
I was just going to, so Deanna is teaching digital illustration. I just wanted to point out the properties panel. So like, I don't know if you can open that up because you
go to the new one? The new one?
Yeah, just go to, you don't need to change your whole workspace.
I am working in Essentials Classic. I heard Essentials is great. I just haven't tried it yet.
No, just, open up you can go to Window.
Oh.
Window Properties. So if you are new to Illustrator, this is kind of nice. So just like bring that up so we can see it.
There we go.
But you were talking about Pathfinder and different things. So if you did have two objects selected,
sure,
it'll give you the alignment tools.
Let's bring that up. I'll show.
Yeah, like do two yeah, thank you. So maybe you just want to,
So it's contextual, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
So, and then Pathfinder's there. So if you're new to Illustrator, it might be helpful to just open up the properties panel rather than hunting down these other panels. But either way, honestly, again, like I think we were talking to Michael earlier, and he said a lot of professional Illustrator users have been using the properties. We thought beginners would use it, and a lot of like pros are. I've been using it a lot because see those little 3 dots there on any one of those. Those will actually jump you out to the actual panel for more. So that's kind of cool.
Contextual UI. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I need to get more used to it. I mean, all these floating panels and all kinds of things. It definitely seems like a good one to learn. And so what we're going to do is, so we've got this line that runs across. Remember, outline is Command Y. I want to make sure that that face that's sitting behind the glass, like there's a different dimension. And so because of the light is going to basically be a little offset from that other one. So we're going to move it down a little bit, and we're only going to move it down maybe 4. So it's kind of different, maybe not too extreme. And remember, we get off the snap to grid by Command Shift apostrophe. And now 1, 2, 3, 4. We just moved it down a little bit. And we can draw it again by taking this box, putting it here. If you want to do that. Grabbing this one. And we're also going to set it on screen. And we might need to go a little bit lighter. We'll just have to see.
I like that offset's nice, gives it some nice
it just kind of like
of depth.
It does, although, so now that I'm looking at it, because of the size of this thing, it's going to be probably not extreme enough. Like, it's so subtle that it can look kind of like a little bit of like a glitch somewhere. So usually for something like that, you know, you'll occasionally just draw things and then you realize, no, that doesn't work as well. We're going to exaggerate it a bit more. We're going to take it, draw this again, and we're actually just going to move it down a full 8. And
So you're just
that'll work better.
Dana's asking when you move squares like up on the grid and you're moving stuff around. I know you're using a lot of. You're just using your arrow keys.
I am, because we're snapping to those grid points right there. So every time that we're moving, as long as we're holding down, or as long as we're snapping to grid and we're pressing one of those arrow keys, it's moving 8. Those are the intervals that we're moving in right now. And get back.
So feel free, if you guys want to dabble in some of this, you can make an emoji and potentially win Creative Cloud. Just check out the contest tab and have at it. Make an emoji of whatever you want. You can make one of Justin. If
You can. You absolutely can. It's encouraged. Nobody's ever made me an emoji before, so.
Oh,
cool.
I'm not going to make
I'm
you.
just saying,
I'm not
it'd
going
be
to make you. Well, because you probably already made one, though. You kind of already have one, don't you?
Yeah, Roger King once drew me for mine. I did not draw that. And we're going to do the same over here. Just trying to get a little one going over there. And we're just going to run it the other direction, just so it's a little bit of different lighting over there.
Hello, Barkley Art from Pennsylvania. Good to have you here. Ivan, Brendan. Yeah, Brendan, so there's a contest. Basically, we're just going to do a random giveaway here in about 18 minutes to give away some posters and stuff.
Nice.
And yeah, then Creative Cloud for each guest. So there should be actually a schedule tab. Let's just double check. You can always click on schedule, and basically for each guest, we're going to give away some posters and Creative Cloud as well. Toronto is in the house. Mira, I like Toronto.
Toronto. I've never been to Toronto.
Oh man, it's just
Just a rad city, huh?
people there are like super nice. Just like good, just such a melting pot of cultures, if you ask me.
All right. And we're doing the same thing over here with just some little windows.
You were just a keyboard jockey.
I am, yeah.
Work it,
it's
buddy.
like I use the mouse when I need to, but for the most part, yeah.
And you're duplicating by holding down the.
Holding down Alt and Shift and pressing a direction, and that's just immediately giving us a new one right there.
You just drop in all these little windows.
That's it. That's it. And you can do as many as you want. There's no science to it right now. It's all just kind of what feels right at the moment.
Welcome if you're just joining us. I'm here with Justin. I'm Paul Tranny here. Justin Mezzell's doing some awesome vector artwork, essentially. Very geometric. Good to have you here. And yeah, so make sure you follow him on all the social medias too. But this is only the beginning.
So yeah, now we have our first little building. And for this building right Mr. Ben Stafford.
And he is my dad.
Yeah, well, okay. Gavin Strange, hi. How's it going? It's so good to have folks here. I'm so glad people are talking.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, get up. That's awesome. I am using Pathfinder. I love Pathfinder. To me, like, I feel like it makes sense for how I like visualize things. I do know Shape Builder is supposedly absolutely fantastic. Use Shape Builder if that's your preference. Totally do it. What we can do too now if we want, so we've got this like building, and that building We can duplicate, obviously I just did it, by holding Alt and Shift. Wait. There you go. Alt and Shift and drag in a direction. And now we've made another version of that building. So now there's 2 right there. So if I'm using that as sort of like the base to build something, I'll usually select it, start changing some of that stuff. We don't want the same exact stuff, and we know it's not gonna look the exact same. So even for now, maybe we'll just use the base of this building to do another building. And maybe this one won't even have those sort of inset windows.
You know what? And I noticed you're not using the layers panel at all.
I don't use layers when I'm in Illustrator. Yeah, and the only reason why is because I think it's really easy to grab whatever layers I'm looking for. And so this is actually why when I'm in Illustrator, I do some things using, obviously like when I created that window, we did end up using a blending mode. But for the most part, I don't use too many blending modes when I'm in here. Usually blending modes I use for Photoshop. And the only reason why is because I find it much easier to grab all of the elements if they're not like stacked on one another. So if you can just get the colors sort of where you want them, you don't really need to use as many blending modes. And then you can grab that color anytime that you want. So I find it a little bit easier to work that way when I'm in here. And maybe this building, we're gonna use our A, which is our direct selection. We're gonna grab this side. We're gonna move it over. We're gonna make a tall, thin building.
How long have you been working in Illustrator? Can we talk about that, or
yeah.
do you not want to?
No. So
like,
I
it's
think,
been too long.
it's probably been about 10 years of working in it. Yeah. I'm always finding out new stuff too, stuff that I didn't know about.
I find that people use layers, depending on, like, you could have started in Photoshop, so you're accustomed to using layers. Then you jump into Illustrator and you take that same sort of thought into it. So
they can be really good. They definitely can. So what we're going to do on this one is we're just going to change it up a little bit and make sure that we're, building sort of a different building. We can change the color a little bit on here. So maybe instead of being like a purple one, maybe this one's going to be like a little bit of like kind of like a sandy sort of color.
I like your color choices.
I'm just kind of winging it as we go and hoping that it kind of works out. Again, we're not too worried about it because we will fix some of those colors. If it's just like not really working, we definitely can fix it.
Hey, Kathleen's in the house. She's not only in chat, but she's actually in the house.
What it is.
She's going to be up next with Julia Zoavo. I don't know if she's here yet, but we got a full day planned. Clear till 5 p.m. PST, so stick around. Yeah, people don't use, do you send things to the front, send them to the back?
I do. I do that a lot. Yeah. So, and the way that we do that is like, if we want to send this to the back, for me, again, it's all key commands. Like that's my workflow. My workflow is like,
that's
my
why
hands are on the keyboard more than anything. And that's Command Shift open bracket. And what that means is like send to the very back. Like there is layering in obviously Illustrator, but if you have some, I guess, spatial context for where everything is in your head, in your build, then you know where everything is on there.
Oh, that's good. Morty, good to have you. Morty Golding actually was a product manager for Illustrator.
Nice.
Back in the day.
Thank
He's
you.
joining us.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
Works for lynda.com, does amazing work, and is a super smart guy.
And even for this, like, okay, so maybe we want like the top of this building to be a little different. We can always just grab it, kind of duplicate it, put it up here.
Zip.
And maybe move this down.
That skyscraper. I want to live in that penthouse up there.
I know, it's pretty baller.
What? That's where I want to live, right there.
All right, and then we're gonna move this in just to offset it a bit. I mean, we could do 2 on that. Oop, just the one there. Push this down a bit. And now we've got just like a slightly different looking building that's going on over here. And then we can kind of start, maybe we want these to go together. So now these are 2 separate groups because we duplicated them. So if you just grab this, Command X, you're gonna cut it out, double click on that, and then we're gonna press Command Shift V. And what that does is it pastes it, but it pastes it like exactly in the space that it came from. So it's like pasting in place. I use that a lot. I think it's a pretty helpful one. We could even start figuring out like maybe we even want our windows to be like a little different. Like maybe we want like a different kind of pane of glass. Pane, not plane. Pane? Pane of glass.
P-A-N-E.
Pane of glass.
Pane. If it's broken, it might be P-A-I-N.
And what we can do on this, maybe we try like a kind of like a hotter one on here. So maybe we'll go to like, again, we never really know exactly how it's going to work until you start messing with it. And I think that like the exploration of it is almost more fun than like knowing the colors. Like to me, it's super interesting to start trying to figure out what colors work and what don't. Maybe it's going to be like a, kind of want like a hot pink kind of one.
Pane in the glass. Justin's wins for pun of the day so far.
I appreciate that. I do love a good pun. And maybe we'll do it to like a, maybe like an orangey kind of color. So it's a little more like that. I always try to like check it, make sure, okay, cool, it's working on that. And then when we do this one, we're just gonna eyedrop that. Gonna duplicate this, move it on over, and then come up with a color that'll work there. We can still use this. Maybe we'll start see what that looks like. Maybe put a little more color into it. Maybe move it more purple. Now I'll go into HSB, which is our hue, saturation, and brightness we discovered. Maybe move it over more towards that. It's feeling a little hot, so we're going to desaturate it a little bit.
Oh, Jean-Eric probably had a pun as well. So if you guys are curious about Justin, there's info tab, kind of talks to, this is your little bio in here as well. So you can
did I write it?
His...
I didn't. I did. I did. I think I did write that. Do you, when you folks write bios, do you do it in the third person knowingly, or do you do it in first person?
I do.
I'm just wondering what everybody else does, because I do it in the third person, but it pains me. It feels a little weird.
Yeah.
Let's saturate this a bit and drop down the value. So now we've got this other little one hanging out there. And one thing that we can do for something like this too is like, so we've got this building and that building sort of sits in front of it. We've got this lighting and we haven't really determined exactly where the lighting is. Is it behind it? Is it in front of it? Wherever it is, let's say it's a little in front. And so maybe there's like a little shadow that's going to be cast from that building. What we can do is draw a little shadow being cast from that building. And maybe we'll sample one of these darker colors. And now basically you've got this building and there's this little shadow.
You know what I like? Yeah, that's nice.
Walk it back.
I like this. I mean, honestly, this is just, we're just doing work.
Yeah.
This is what it all comes down to.
It is.
There's no, I mean, you're showing some fancy shortcuts and things, but really
Sorry
we're
about the
shortcuts. You are the king of.
You
are like a keyboard jockey.
I don't really think about it, but it is true. Like it's like my hands are more on the keyboard than they are on the mouse at all times. And I think it's just like you just kind of get used to that workflow, and everything just happens really quickly. Yeah,
that's a good point. So it's asking, someone's asking how do you avoid those gradient banding that you get? Because yours are pretty smooth. Maybe.
Yeah, they can be. You know, honestly, I wish I had a scientific answer for that. There are some gradients that do band. There's a couple ways to get around it. Typically, if you bring it into Photoshop, let's say, and you are doing some adjustment layers on top of it, whether it's like curves, levels, whatever they are, you can kind of manipulate how those things are working, how much banding you're getting on that. Sometimes it can make it a little bit worse and give you more.
Can you select gradient real fast?
Yeah.
And then open up the gradient panel?
Absolutely.
Just so we're aware of, like, even as they know that top diamond there, controls. Do you know about that little guy?
Which, this right here?
Yeah. So that might help if it comes to, that might help if you have some banding. If you tweak that a little bit, maybe that would help. I don't know. Just letting people know about it.
Yeah, that can. And another way that you can do it, if you're in a situation where you've got two colors and it's banding really hard, texture can take away the banding. So if you use a noise filter on it and you drop it down to like seriously like 2 or 3 opacity, that actually can. Yep, I saw Martin said the same thing. Yep.
Nice.
That's a great way to do it.
Yeah. Deanna, good call. We got a bunch of smart people here.
I do like that. Again, like I learn more from the people that are in these streams. I feel like, I mean, I'm always learning tips and tricks from other folks. We can add some detailing on here if we want. Like let's try to use like a stroke of some sort now. Maybe we'll do that at 2 pixels. And so what we'll do now is just kind of like, so we've got this. Maybe even though, yes, technically the window would, if we were doing every 2, which is 16 pixels, it would be here. Optically, I like the way it looks over here. So we're just gonna do that.
And you're working at the same size, right? I mean, you haven't zoomed in or out a lot.
Oh yeah.
Like in terms of...
I zoom out to check kind of compositional stuff. You know, it's like to do that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you know, I mean, I'm not too worried yet about it. So I'm gonna grab these, select alike, group it together. Now we've got these kind of like bands. We can duplicate that, bring it over here, grab the same color. And so what we're going to use is, right now, if you sample things, whatever is in front is actually, that's what you're sampling. So if we were to grab this, we're actually going to be sampling white, and you can't see it on here because it's just a stroke, but we've sampled now a white fill. And what we really want is we actually want to change the color of the stroke. So you can do that by switching this right here. Oh, sorry, that actually changes the color of it. That goes back to your default. But for me, out of the key shortcuts, if you hold Shift X, that's going to switch and it's going to flip your fill to your stroke to your fill, and vice versa. You can keep doing that back and forth if you want. Or if you just press simply X, now it's going to change the selection that you're working in. So now anything that I sample, because the stroke is in the front, will be sampling. Well, I would have to hold down Shift for that. But if I hold down Shift, that's going to basically select it for whatever I have selected in front. So if I were to select this, it's going to change the strokes to that color. Same thing with over here. So I'm going to grab this one here. And there we go. We've got a building, a little reflection right there. That's kind of how it's looking there. So what we can do as well, now we know, all right, we've got this little light that we want to have sort of hanging out and casting some cool light. Whoops. Every now and then you're going to grab, because we're snapping to the grid, you're going to grab a grid point,
another,
which is okay.
There's no way around that I know of.
Yeah,
unless you put on another layer and lock it.
Yeah, unless you lock it. Unless you lock it, yes, you are gonna grab that element, and it's not a big deal. Like for us, we just kind of just do it, and I usually just set it on a point that's a little different, and then just keep going. Okay, for this, just to get it. And now what we can do is we can duplicate this because it's so simple and straight down. There's no other like obtrusions in it, and just start manipulating some of these.
So Reed asks about how you select an object and scale it without messing with the proportions, I think essentially
yes.
is what's...
Yeah, so basically you're saying if you have like two objects kind of like this and you wanted to scale it but also not mess up the proportions, then you could hold Shift and that's going to maintain the proportions that you have. When I do this, a lot of times, like I want to like keep it in the same area. So I'm usually keeping it centered, and that's Alt and Shift and dragging it. So I'm still keeping the proportions, but it's also going to the center, kind of moving it there. And I find that to be helpful.
And other than that, it would take using the direct selection tool if you wanted to scale up, stretch it out, but keep the circle a circle and, make a bigger base. So a lot of times this is like selecting the right vector points.
And we're not currently working in another layer. I'm working just in the same layer. You can totally switch it up and do different layers. It's really up to whoever the workflow is that you prefer. I don't do too many layers when I'm in Illustrator.
Well, we have 900 people watching. Who's talking about us? Stop telling people about Adobe Live. I'm just kidding. You should tell everybody. Tell your friends. We want plenty of people watching, especially when we have such talented people here. Not only in the chat, of course, on camera here.
Everybody's really nice here. Everybody's real nice.
So the contest, by the way, I could probably talk about that real fast. Essentially, this contest tab, we're going to kind of switch to my screen maybe, if you don't mind. You'll see it says chat, click on contest, and we're going to be creating an emoji today. So we're going to have a contest today or a different theme each day. You can see Julia's work, so she's going to be up next if you want just some inspiration, but it could be anything that you want. Just submit through this form, and in about 40 minutes, we're going to be reviewing those submissions to potentially win Creative Cloud. In about 10 minutes, we'll give away some posters just because we can. And guess what? One of them is from Robzilla. Who is that? Jing Wei in the middle? Is that hers? Is that right? Okay, good.
That's awesome.
And Christine Heron. So yeah, we'll give you some fine prints to a random person just because we can, and we just appreciate you guys being here. So
I do love seeing like people who work really well in like really fluid organic lines. Like that's never been how I think about things. Everything is so like programmatic and hard line and vector, like bump. But when I see folks who work really well in like organic shapes,
it's hard to do. It's so a lot of Bezier, like
oh my god.
Like Jing's work, hers is really it's
remarkable.
Pretty like symmetrical and smooth at the same, like wavy, and
I love it. I really do. Yeah. Very cool.
So Helen, the theme today is emojis. Tomorrow we'll have a different theme. So Ooh, this is a great question. Jack asks whether there's a way to adjust the size of an object without adjusting the stroke.
Adjust the size. Yeah,
Like scaling up an object.
Yeah. Well, because your stroke is already like a programmatic element, like you could adjust the size and that stroke is still going to stay the same.
And just so you know, if you do want it to scale, you can adjust that in preferences.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done that.
Yeah.
That scares me. Everything's got to be plotted. Everything's got to be whole numbers.
No, I kind of toggle back and forth. Kind of just depends on what it is. But basically under preferences, general, right here. So we'll just kind of show my screen.
Yeah.
Scale strokes and effects. You could also scale corners, but that's if you want.
I'm not ready for that.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Man, look out.
I mean, that was like even so. Live corners is this really awesome thing where let's say you drew a shape. And there's like, all right. So let's say I have a shape right here. Now I have these little circles here. Those allow me to now start pulling and be able to manipulate kind of that border radius on there. Even when I'm working in that, like I do whole numbers there. It's got to be like 4 or it's got to be like 8 or whatever it is. It's very specific for how I have to work. I'll know. Oh man, I'll know.
You want to mess with Justin? Just change the grid to 7.
I don't know if I would know 8. With somebody else, but yes, if I'm working on a piece, I'm gonna move it out of here.
Odd number.
Here's something I forgot to mention. So, like when you're working, and if you hit the artboard, if you're like me and you want everything to stick to the grid, when you get to places like around here, it actually doesn't listen to that anymore. The artboard technically overrides the snap to the grid when you get a little close to it, which means that if you're like me and you've hid the actual artboard, you could get to this area and then just have weird behaviors. Like it's kind of like, it's not exactly sticking to the point that you want to. And that's just simply because the artboard overrides that. So if you're ever gonna get to that point, just kind of move it out of the frame just so you don't ever have to worry about that. And it's just not a concern. That's usually what I do. All right, so we've got 2 buildings right now. I think it would be really cool to start like pulling, I know that somebody had mentioned like Monument Valley. Like I think it'd be really cool as we kind of build this city, kind of a futuristic looking city, like to take some of these elements that are, that you wouldn't typically think of in like a super futuristic city and try to Tronify or futurize some of that kind of stuff. So Monument Valley is a really cool one to think about where it's like you've got these really cool structures. I should do game because Monument Valley is a place as well. So you've got like all these really interesting structures. There's a type for that architecture. I don't know if anyone knows what it was called, but if you know what it's called, let me know because that will also give us more inspiration to be able to mess with.
This is great.
Yeah, it's like some really interesting sort of builds.
Oh, those little flags are interesting. Yeah. Very, like medieval.
Yeah, I think this would be a really cool mix for what we're building. So we're gonna be able to pull some of this stuff. Let's find like some funky looking windows and structures. Yeah, isometric is really fun. Illustrator's got some really good tools for that.
Isometric is basically the 3D aspect that you're seeing, where it's gosh, I don't know. There's no perspective when it comes to isometric.
Yeah, there's like a really, for me, I just use kind of like recorded commands to there. It just like runs through to do it. We could do an isometric one at some point. It's a pretty fun way to build with stuff. Oh my goodness, I want to make something like real fun with this kind of shapes. So what we'll do is we'll keep this in mind. Again, a really cool thing that you can do if you're working in Illustrator, or really any of the programs that are in the suite, like you can grab an image, you can go over to Illustrator over here, and simply paste that image right here. A lot of times when I'm doing a project, I'll kind of start this like inspiration farm of a whole bunch of elements that I really like. So, maybe this will be one, and then I'll go and I'll keep looking and be like, oh yeah, this is a really cool building.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna show you something else.
It needs to match, it needs to line up. Just nicer that way. Oh my goodness.
Let me actually show you this too as well. I don't know if you know about this. So I just went File New. So if you have Illustrator CC, do you know about this? So I just went to, we actually give you a lot of templates, and I went to Art and Illustration.
Oh,
because there's this one. Let's see a preview of it. Like there's
too
some
cool.
fun things out there that are isometric that
Yeah.
you could have for free in case you want
That's
to
awesome.
experiment. So there's plenty of those out there. Ooh, there's a futuristic cities set. What?
Nice.
Cheating.
And that is something really cool is like, if you ever get the opportunity to like take somebody's source files and like get to click around and see how they do things, it's a really, really cool way because you do learn a lot of stuff like, oh, I never would have thought of applying it like that. I mean, something as simple as like
Yeah,
that
and these
triangle,
are-
the little triangle character and the last thing you had up, like the way to apply that sort of lighting and shadow, there's like 10 different ways that you could do that in Illustrator and everybody works differently. And I think that that's such a cool thing.
Yeah. And so these are free files, by the way, like you said. It's like you see actually, looks like you use different artboards, but otherwise everything's on one layer, but you kind of pick that apart. And see if they used actual 3D effect or made it, you know, by hand, if you will.
All right, I'm just lining these up because it just feels better that way. But so you can do the same. You can group them. You can move around your inspiration farm however you want. This is a little off. I get it. I get it.
I love it.
It's gonna bother you as much as it's gonna bother me. So yeah, so we've got these buildings that can just hang out. We can just move it around if we want. So what we're gonna do is I think I really like how they handle like windows and arches and this kind of work. And so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna like do a little bit of a play on a little arch. And I'll show you how. We're just gonna do a little rectangle here. And maybe we want to create like some sort of, it hits like a peak and it kind of like comes in like that. So we'll give it a little bit wider for now. So I'm gonna draw an ellipse right here. And as you can see, it kind of works like that. And then I'm gonna duplicate that ellipse and move it over here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab both of these and I've got this relationship right here, which is like take the intersection and keep that shape. And if we do that, now we've kind of got this like cool little shape right here. And then maybe we do kind of something like that. So we're going to create like a mega structure out of these ones. Obviously these buildings are pretty big. This will not be like the size of a small window. This will be the size of a giant building. But now we've got this window right here. And if we want to put it all together, we could just unite all of those elements. And we can apply the same sort of gradient that we have right there. So now we've got this window right here. And maybe we'll duplicate this, do a couple of them.
It's pretty cool.
Some pretty fun stuff to play with. And then maybe draw like a face on this. And we might make it a little more thin, just to get it a little bit different than some of the other ones we've done. And let's see, let's grab a color. Let's see, we've got purple, we've got kind of like that. What about like a bluish kind of tint? If we can make, if it works. One of the things that you're kind of messing with when you do color is, so if you have a relationship where you have, let's say, a gradient, and that gradient goes from dark to light, like let's say it's like the darkest of the dark here to like a super light one. We won't make it totally white, just so you can see where it ends and begins. When you have something like this and you use a color that is like kind of in between them, and so it transitions from light to dark, it can tend to feel a little bit weird. There's this like strange optical illusion that happens where like it looks like it's kind of like banding up and above it in some places, and sometimes it just starts to feel weird. So usually a good rule of thumb that I work with when I'm doing these things is I always try to make sure it works in one direction. Like either the gradient is lighter across the whole board or it's darker across the board rather than mixing. So for me, what that would mean is like if I've got this, that gradient that I'm working with, I don't want it to get that dark. So that means, you know, right here, that relationship feels a little bit better and a little bit safer visually.
Yeah, doesn't like mess with your eyes, whether it's in front or behind. So this is good. Oh, by the way, we're doing this every week. We're live every single week, by the way, Tuesday through Thursday. So stick around, join us. If it's your first time, thank you. But hang out with us every week. This is the best week ever. Until next week comes along, and then that will be the best week ever.
It's true.
This is
it'll only get better
vector
from
art.
here.
I feel
I'm setting
like,
the bar low
I
enough.
feel like this is a good place to start the new year, which is with vector, because I think everything starts out in vector, and then ends up in After Effects or you know, Photoshop.
That's true.
You can disagree. It's okay.
That's fine. We're not going to know.
right.
We're not going to know you did. All right, cool. So we've
Tuesday
got
to
this front.
Thursday. All right.
Yeah, I think it'll help kind of with that visual interest of sort of like what the city's sort of looking like. We can start adding to some like a little bit more interesting set pieces on there. So maybe on this one, we've got like this area that sort of juts out, and so you've got like a building that comes up and it's got this like cap on it that looks a little different. So what we can do is we've got this piece. Maybe we're going to lighten it just like a little bit right here, so it kind of comes out. And now maybe we want to have some sort of supporting system. So I'm going to move it up a bit so we have a little more room. Some little supporting joist right here. We're just going to make it a little bit darker. Yeah, I probably want to add a little more saturation.
So yeah, we should. And when you're at a lull, we'll give away something. Does that sound good?
We can give away something right now. We can give away something right now.
Let's give away right now. Okay,
while
you tweak that, all you have to do is just be active in chat. That's what we want to see. So tell us where you're from. Tell us how much you like Justin's hair. Wish us a happy new year. But basically, I'm wondering where everybody's from and if it's their first time. Those are my two big questions. Say yes. I'm from Barcelona and I want to win.
Nice.
I'm from Philippines and it's 4 a.m. here, so let me win.
Which is awesome. If that's
right.
Look at all these places.
New Jersey, Vegas, Montana, Hawaii. Sorry. Oh, and they do like your hair.
Aw, that's really sweet. I just thought I still have hair right now. So
you get
I
older.
I hope I get to ride it out. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to keep and what I don't.
You're just happy to have
Yeah,
hair.
exactly. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful.
Yes, I agree. San Diego, just south of us. We're here in San Francisco, where it's a beautiful sunny day out there. Not really.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's not really.
It's
like,
not.
Yeah,
it's
not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's a very San Francisco experience we're having. Tucson, Birmingham, Alabama, Edmonton, Alberta. Yep, been there. Minneapolis, Broward County. Don't know where that is. Nice, or they're just saying nice. I don't know. Fantastic. So if you've said something in chat, we just need to make sure that you guys are alive on the other end of your keyboard. So when we give something away, we want you to be able to respond and say thank you. So yeah. And Adobe Live team will pick the winner. Nice. So be nice to them as well. And the Gus 5000 who runs Adobe Live team. So, also we have Julia in the house. Good to see you. She's up next. She'll be up in about 45 minutes. So, yay. Welcome. How are you doing? Good to have you here. Raleigh in the house. Daytona Beach. Probably sunny there. Oh, no. They're dealing with the cold snap.
Yeah, I think they did. Yeah, I did hear a lot about that.
Yes. Greg's doing... That's how you win. Adobe Live team is the best. That's one way.
Hey-o.
That's one way of doing it.
They are. They've been awesome. It's super
They have been
awesome.
good. It's a team of about 28 people on Adobe Live team that are busy doing background checks on everybody who enters. They're in here. And once they run that, Justin Mezzell, of course, creating some awesome
We're going to group that.
cityscapes.
We're going to put it all together. All right, so this is probably where the efficiency of Shapefinder could come in if you were to use it, but we're just gonna go ahead and just use our Pathfinder for all of them because that's the flow I like.
Yeah, man, you're doing it. Like, hey, there's
and
no way.
you could also mask as well. So for me, like you could mask these elements instead to do like a non-destructive way to have it mapped to the windows. For me, I like destructive ways every single time, and the only reason why is because I'm working like on a very strict grid system. Anything that's like outside of that mask, like I don't like having to consider other things. I want the shapes to end where they end. That's just how I like thinking.
That looks really good, man. I like
Thanks.
that. I like those highlights. All right, there we go. Looks like we have a winner. Thank you so much, everybody, for entering. Sticker rank still win, but our winner of the Fantastic Prints is Chandler Polikov. Chandler Polikov. Yeah. Just say, hello, I'm here, and thank you, Chandler Polikov. Thank you so much. Awesome. You're the grand prize winner of 3 amazing prints. One of them is done by Rob Zilla, who is here. Boom. Mr. T right above my head. There we are. Jing Wei. Christine Heron.
Oh, nice.
3 prints, and we like giving you everything we have. And right now we have some prints. So thank you so much. Don't worry, you can still enter the emoji contest. So basically create emoji in Illustrator and submit that. It's just the contest tab, and I'm gonna see how we're doing on those entries here as well.
It's still going.
I glance over there and I'm like, wow.
We're still going.
Tight.
We just got these little truss elements to hold up this platform up top. And we'll give this some light because it's gonna get some. We need to make this a little darker.
Oh yeah, we got some serious entries. Whew. Oh man.
Do we get to see them yet, or no?
Well, in a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, right now it looks like we have probably about 15 entries.
Awesome.
Bear with me as I open these up.
Am I allowed to look at it, or should I pretend like I don't see?
Yeah, don't look at them now, because
All right,
I want you to review them with me, with
it's got to be
everyone.
fresh. Yeah, that's great. I'm definitely down with that. So we got this little building up here that we're messing with. And this is like a fun area if we want to then start messing around with I don't know, maybe we have some more intricate stuff. Like some of the Monument Valley stuff has this interesting decorative elements that are kind of drawn on top of it. That you can see right here, there's a cool band. So what we can do is we can do the same kind of thing. We'll just grab this. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a little darker color. It's gonna be a little subtle. We're not gonna go too nuts with it. It's just like that. We'll do the same over here. So now we've got these little structures right there. And then we just kind of draw however we want on it. So maybe I'll just do a little circle over here, and I'll bring this over. Maybe make this a little smaller and just kind of start doing some strange little decorations. We don't have any plans for them in terms of what they need to look like. We're just kind of doing it and just kind of changing it if we need to, but otherwise we're just kind of experimenting with some shapes and seeing what. See, now we have a Pokeball, so obviously we'll keep that.
I think it's a good idea. You should have. Do you ever have little Easter eggs? You could probably.
Yeah, every now and then I will.
Easter eggs.
Yeah, I appreciate a nice little Easter egg in there.
Are there any Easter eggs in the latest Illustrator? I don't actually know of any. But that's a good. Thank you, Armando and Carlos and Christy, for entering in something into our emoji contest. Quite a few entries. Help me. Too many. All right. So yeah, the Adobe, yeah, here we go. We also have Voodoo Vowels here, by the way.
Oh, we totally do.
In the flesh. It's looking fantastic. We're gonna have to talk Star Wars later, but
that's right.
That's a whole. Don't mean to derail the conversation. Do you want to? Yeah, come up here. And
this would be.
She actually, yes, she has a face and she has fabulous hair. Can we go full screen? Can we go larger? Say hi, because she's not here that much, so we appreciate having you here.
Hi guys.
Yay! That's Voodoo Val. So when you see her online, she's the lady with the cool hair that has the cool moves, as you can see. Good having you. Laura Triana, thank you for your entry.
I'm sorry. I looked and I shouldn't have looked.
This is what
I'm sorry.
While you work, I feel like I want to make sure everybody has time to see. Oh, there's a lot here, dude.
I really want to see it. I really do. It's been really tough not to look. You tell me when I'm allowed to.
I think we're whenever we're at a stopping point.
I think we're at a stopping point. What do you folks think? Can we do that?
Julia says wait a bit more. Hey, let's just look at it.
Wait a bit. I will wait.
We'll click through some of these real fast.
Cool.
So you can still work.
I love that.
And I want to make sure everybody gets there. Is sort of like,
that's
okay,
awesome
so we
light.
have, let's just double check. This is Shavam's. So
Super
some
cool
nice
lighting.
texture.
Super fun lighting. I love that.
It is hard to tell if this was done today or not. That's the only thing I'm thinking about.
That's right. There's an honor system.
There is an honor system going on here. This is Kayla Carval. Emoji by Queen by Design. It wasn't me. I love it. So it's great. We know this was created today. Let's look at Sarah
Shaggy.
Hollins.
Good.
Sarah, we have a nice. Cup O
Nice,
Joe.
simple,
Use some of
reductionist,
that.
that's good.
Very similar to.
Yeah.
We got our Cup of Joe here. I like the nice lines like that at the top. Christy Bailey. Cool Canadian emoji.
It's in every set.
That's
There's always a
super
cool
fun.
Canadian emoji. That's awesome.
Just smiles. Just you can't help but smile when
Just
you
your
look
classic
at
cool Canadian emoji.
that. I love it. Ralquist, Tickled Pink.
Rad.
Hey, could
Good
use one of
gradient.
those. Let's go Armando's. A Bitten Popsicle. Nice gradient.
Yeah,
nice
and totally
colors.
speaking my language with those purples. Whew,
A little highlight right here,
Yeah.
like showing that edge,
Yeah.
and that would be tight.
Love those purples.
And by the way, if we don't show yours this hour, we should get to them next during our next segment with our next guest.
What?
So this is Carlos.
Yeah.
Oh, this
there's
is
lot.
one of those lucky. Is that what it is? One of those lucky ornaments where don't you like scratch off the eyes and I'm not sure.
I don't know what it is, but that's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, it's super rad.
It's a good luck charm type thing.
Yeah, I dig that.
That was Carlos Rodrigo. Look at his dab. Hey, why not? Because he
awesome.
can. I like that. That got a little darker right there. That looks good.
Yeah, it is.
That's fun.
Those are fun shapes too.
Heidi.
Oh, emoji waffle.
I haven't
Sound
even
is loading.
I haven't even looked at these yet. So.
Oh yes.
Tight.
Nice.
Oh, that's getting me hungry.
Leslie Nope would be proud. That's great.
Olga. Working mode.
Nice.
you
Cool
guys
dimension. That's
man,
really fun.
This is great gradient. Look at
Yeah,
that.
that's really fun.
That was
I dig
really
that.
good. Olga, great job. Last up for right now is Laura.
Wow, a set. We're working on a set.
Ooh, Christmas.
That's awesome.
Of course, the Colombian flag. She's in Bogota. Ice cream.
Talk to the hand. Nice.
Talk to the hand. And then drum set.
Oh, that's rad. This is good.
Might be the mesh gradient. Well, good call. So that's just a handful. We'll get these narrowed down. We'll show what we can, but we're going to need your help to kind of pick the winner. I don't want to put all that pressure on you, but I probably will put all that pressure on you.
Oh, it's on me? It's on me. Okay.
Well, not right now, though.
Yeah, no,
You can
obviously
continue to work,
not.
so we're going to do that. We're going to do
Totally.
this in about 40 minutes.
Not
but thank
even
you
interested
so
in doing
much.
it now.
Aldi is fantastic. Cool Canadian. Bitten Popsicle. You get the idea. This good luck charm. Dab. Waffle. Working mode. Oh, good stuff.
There's a lot of good stuff there.
All right, let's get back to your action.
All right, I'll keep going then.
Every time I glance over there, I'm like, dude, how did this
Except
get so
that
dope?
one, I did stop. See, okay, so right now we've got some issues because this gradient that we set originally, like it's not working now because this is getting darker. So a couple things we can do if I was in this situation, which I am currently. We can always see if another window color would work better. So we can always try this. See, now that's feeling pretty cool. I'm kind of liking that one. Might need to do a little bit of tweaking on some of those like kind of slate colors.
I like that. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
And then I would probably grab these and try to, well, let's see what we used here. What do we use? They are at 20%. And this is another thing to keep in mind. So when you group objects and you tamper with their opacity percentage, it's going to apply it to the group layer, but not on the individual layer because you can still toggle that. So if we were to just select using our direct selection this object, it's going to say that it's a 100% opacity. But if we were to actually like double click and just grab that element, that's where we pushed it down to 20%. Just something to keep in mind because that means even though it's all at 20%, you could still go in here, this individual object, and on an object level now change it to 40% or whatever you want it to do. So we've got it at 20%. That's why this is feeling a little bit strong. So I'd probably walk this back. 20% on that. And then we'd apply, what do we use over here? 20% as well. And we can walk this one back. Not loving how this color is working, which means I'd probably drop this a bit, this side, just to get a little bit darker. Maybe it is lighter. Well, for now, we're gonna keep it as is, and there's a reason why. We are gonna go back eventually when we start working in Photoshop. We're gonna be able to treat some of those colors, and so we're not too worried yet if it's not perfect. We are still gonna kind of unify how it all works, but right now we've got what, 3 buildings. They're looking all right. And this is probably at a point where I know some folks had asked about whether or not we do any sort of like blending modes on there. We've already used some for the sheens, but a really cool way to do it too is like, let's say in this scene, we had like a direct source of light. And let's say that it was like, you know, just this kind of like city spotlight that's sort of coming out of there. And we wanted to do, let's see, let's make it pretty bright. Into our HSB. And we'll have it go to the same color for this.
Cinnamon saying to save before long.
Oh goodness, what a good thought. All right, so we've got this kind of light right here, and maybe it's like, you know, it's spotlight, so it's coming from the back right here. We'll drop it all the way back here if we want. And this is a place where like now we might apply one of these kind of things to it where it's like, okay, so I just grabbed it, I duplicated it, and now I'll go into here and I'll paste it. So now it's only going to be affecting one face of the building, maybe just about right there. And then what we can do is we can always screen it. And now we've sort of got like that light is now being taken into account. And we can do the same thing over here.
And so where is that light source coming from? Or
so
what you...
if in this situation, this would be in front of those buildings a little bit, or it could be getting a little bit of like the lighting that's kind of pulling from it because our buildings are a little angled. So in this kind of situation, this is just like a fun way to do that. And then what you can do too is even though maybe it wouldn't absorb all of it, but you want some of that light to kind of come through, you know, start applying it really lightly.
Looks so good.
So it starts influencing the colors.
Somebody was saying how, I mean, you're doing great. It's amazing what you can do with color to show depth. And that's all you're doing. It's just like using, you're taking the flattest shape possible.
Right.
You know.
Because if we look at this, these are all of our shapes. You know, we've got some 45-degree angles, we've got some rectangles, some ellipses, but like we're keeping it all in that kind of same realm, trying to keep it really simple, but create a little bit more of a dynamic scene based on some really simple geometry. And maybe we'll do like a...
Yeah, we have quite a few entries for our contest, by the way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is gonna... Mira says this is amazing.
Oh, the kindest.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do on here is I'm gonna create a building that has like a little bit more of like a pyramid shape. And so in order to do that, you know, just to celebrate San Francisco, what we're gonna do now is like, so I created the window right here, and then I created an actual outline layer that's gonna go outside of that, and it's right behind it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go to Effect, Path, and we're gonna offset path. And what we're gonna do is do it by, let's try 8 and see how that looks. And all that's really doing is it's taking the points that we plotted and it's just expanding it. Obviously I work in little integers with 8 there. I'm gonna try 16. Yeah, that's feeling a little bit more interesting. So let's do that. I'm gonna knock out this bottom here. Oh, wait. Oh, I know, because we need to expand. Once you do that, you do need to expand the appearance, and that way it actually like
makes it a shape.
Makes it, yeah, the actual shape.
Shanak needs to go prepare dinner, so we have to stop until he comes back.
Yeah, well, this has been good.
We'll just wait till he has dinner, and then...
Let's see. Which one should we use? Let's try using this again. It's been a little bit since we've used it.
I like how you're really, you got to stick with the sort of that color palette. it could easily get super messy.
Yes.
If you're not keeping it kind of tight by sampling colors from other buildings.
Yeah, and I usually try to do that where like I'm gonna work within like a family, so it's like maybe we will end up adding another color to the window colors or another structural color, but for the most part, I am trying to make sure that like we have the same colors and they're gonna be repeated. And the reason why is because when we do get to post-processing some of that color and some of the grading, I wanna make sure that it's not a huge net that we're casting.
So Misty, to answer your question, like this is being recorded, so you could always watch this on demand later. Stay with us live right now, but eventually, so at the end of the week, you can kind of scrub through actually and watch it build, which would be kind of fun. Yeah, we're looking if we could break 1K in terms of number of people watching. That'd be awesome. So tell your friends about this. We're here Tuesday to Thursday as part of our first year live during the week. Kicking it off. This is good. Yeah, so many entries. Got a couple more. Thank you, Ryan Ford. Submitted some avocado toast. Just a quick shout out to Ryan Ford.
Get it?
There you go, buddy. Very nice. Sliced. Looks fantastic. That's actually what I had for breakfast this morning.
Is it?
Like
Yeah.
Like a true hipster.
Yeah, it was very healthy.
Avocado toast.
Very healthy.
Thanks. Yeah. Sorry I didn't bring everybody some.
You did bring us coffee though, so given the choice.
From Phil's.
Yeah, given the choice, I'd still take that every time.
Phil's with a Z. Like a true hipster.
Let's see. Oh, that's why.
Oh, this is fun. Thank you, Nadia, as well. We'll just show hers real fast. Is that actually Nadia? I know it's... yeah. So this is awesome little panda bear.
Nice.
There's actually... That's a sort of a light gray. So panda.
Wait, why am I mentally...
Panda. How many of you said panda 3 times in your head when I said panda? Panda.
Fine, I'll get off the grid here.
And I'm probably going to have to cap this at 15, by the way, in terms of this contest. I just don't know.
Just a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we have
it does keep
so
growing.
many submitted.
Oh, that's awesome.
So this is kind of where Oh, Toby me. Let's look at Toby's. Give me 1 second. Oh, hold on. I'm just going to click on this. Okay, we'll just look at Toby's real fast. Toby me's crying LeBron.
Yeah.
I don't know if he made this today, but it's pretty awesome.
That is really awesome.
Talent. That's good stuff. Rob, do you appreciate this, buddy? Rob does lots of sort of sports artwork. Yeah, I'm gonna have to cap it at this many. All right, yeah. So, thank you, everybody. You can still, I guess, submit yours. If we don't show them this hour, we'll show them next hour with our next guest, by the way, just because there's too many to cover right now. We weren't expecting this many, but thank you so much for some amazing work. Paul, I'll have to see if the abstract, let me actually check. Let me see if I have, oh yeah, Paul, looks like we have yours submitted. But that's like maybe 23rd on the list. And I kind of need to cap it right now. Just working away.
Just make a little shorter building so that we have, some differences in the height.
It's just fun. It's fun watching you. It really is. It's very pleasing, just watching.
It's meditative, yeah. Well, it's simple.
Yeah.
I like simple when I work, There is something that is like kind of cathartic about just working and just kind of clicking the points, where they're going. It's easy going,
listening to some music.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. What was that? Awesome. Caesar's moving to Switzerland to get a graphic design.
Nice.
Getting a graphic design degree and an illustration degree. Switzerland. That's awesome, man. That's so cool. I honestly think we have like the best jobs in the world. Right?
It is a
I hope
great
other
job.
people love what they do.
Yeah.
I really do. I want people going to work happy. You know, and I feel like
I mean, it's awesome to get to do this.
we work all the time and yet don't work at all. Kind of at the same time. So.
And it's like,
Yes.
there's all kinds of cool things. Like, it's like, you know, the fact that we have community, the fact that, like, we're able to be here and, like, get to know one another and, like, live in these totally different places, but, like, be united by something that we are really passionate about and it's really exciting. Like, that's such a cool thing that design and the creative world kind of gives you.
Yeah. Yeah, and even just working this way, I'm thinking, okay, all you're really using, you're actually using limited tools and a limited, somewhat limited palette, but, like, I mean, I don't know. I just like... This is a different style than what I'm used to, yet I want to do this.
Cool.
You know?
Well, it's
and
all
I
pretty
speak
simple
for
on that.
everybody here, I'm sure.
It's a pretty simple way to work.
And it spans languages too, because we have a pretty international audience.
Yeah.
And everybody is like relating to whether... You know when something like is good or not. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't have anything to do with
I feel like I do while I'm doing it. It's like, oh man. And sometimes like
you know when something's good and when something's like not right.
Especially when you're live streaming, like, and you're gonna notice this in your personal design life too, where it's like you could be building something and like sometimes like it's just not coming together. Like no matter what you're doing, it's just it's not coming together. And I feel like there's not really a point that I've experienced yet, no matter how long I've designed for it, where every single time it's always a win. And then sometimes it's like not a win through like 80% of it, and then all of a sudden, like at the end, something changes where it's like, wait a second, oh yeah, and then it clicks, and then you can really change the piece in a cool way. But it doesn't always work while you're doing it.
Yeah. And it's helpful when you have an audience like this, because we've had chat and people just watching us online throw out suggestions, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah.
So it's like pretty
exactly. And if you have
helpful.
them, totally feel free. This is a great open space for anybody to give suggestions or give ideas and you know, kind of change the direction that we're going with it. So totally feel free to do that.
Yeah.
Hi.
As long as it's like, yeah, just do the same thing but different. You know what I'm saying? Like
I can't work with that yet.
Yeah, we can't quite. Can you make it better? Can you make it different and the same at the same time?
I usually can't make it very much better, unfortunately. Let's see. Let's bring this in.
Yeah, how did you actually... somebody is asking about how you found your passion as an artist. Like, have you always been like a designer or illustrator, or like?
You know, I wasn't originally. I had worked actually in print was actually where I got my start, was working in the print world, and I had occasionally in that place been able to do some illustration here and there. And so I had like an idea that I liked the experience of doing it, didn't really know much about it. And that's actually why I started working with the grid system, because I'm not a great hand illustrator. I can't draw people like by hand. They look terrible. I can't draw many things. But when you stick to the grid, it's like you don't need an innate sense of like a really good, you know, hand illustration style. And so for me, it became a challenge. And so when I kind of like was getting started, I would set challenges for myself. Like it would be like, okay, I have grid spaces available. I'll allow myself 10 by 10 grid spaces. And then I was like, I need to be able to illustrate like a record player in that amount of space. And so then I would just kind of like start plotting points and figuring out like, how would I need to abstract the element that I'm building in order to create it? So it's like, you know, if I'm doing it, it's like, well, I know I have an affordance to create a little structure for it. And I know that I want a record in this kind of space. And that record will have like a label on it. So it's like, you know, that goes in this space. And like, you just kind of start messing with it, and maybe there's some dimension that you drop behind it, and so you know it works kind of like this. Like once you kind of like set those things for yourself, well, I mean I think it's all really simple that you're doing it, but I think what makes like illustration compelling is not like my interest not in point for point replication. It's in like, what did this individual do to like deviate from the way that you see life in a way that changes it in a way that like says something really cool. So to me, like reductionist elements are really interesting to start saying like, how would I build this with very, very limited ability to do that? knowing that I can't draw. And so, yeah, I think for me that's always been like a really compelling part of illustration. And then kind of developing your own style as you do it and figuring out, well, you know, I like extruding, you know, the side to give it some sort of dimension, even though if you're really looking at it top down, you wouldn't see that dimension, but it's a cool play on it. Or, you know, figure out how you work with colors, like, or maybe you want everything to be completely, you know, like no ellipses. Maybe it's all, you know, squares and whatnot. Like there's so many ways to do something.
Yeah. No, it's good. That's why it's fun watching you work. I think Julia as well has kind of similar styles, kind of like deducing something down to its most basic shape. I'm actually just showing she's up next, so this is just a shout out for her. Look at all of her emojis. Look at all of these.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Isn't they fun? Look at this little kitten. Come on now.
Yeah.
So super
that's
cool.
rad.
I know this is like multiple owners on this, but we're looking forward to having you step up next. That's gonna be good. You're working away. What else can I? Let's see if I have. We already talked about that one. We have like. In about 5 minutes, we'll go over all these.
Cool. Cool. I like it.
And yeah, so Amanda likes mathematical aspect. I mean, you're definitely doing things based on a grid, and you're dealing with architecture,
math.
which is interesting.
I really love math.
You'll never hear me say that ever.
Yeah.
I got a C in math in college at art school.
Did you?
Which that's like the most basic math you like. I'm not proud of that.
I love math so much. Like I think it's like the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I wish I was voracious in math. Like I loved learning it. I like doing more as I'm building. Like it's so cool. Math is awesome.
The best free school for design happens to be at behance.net/live, which is where we're at right now. Because again, this is like free education where you can ask us.
It's true.
Ask Justin questions. But it's tough to say where the best school is at.
I'd say like pretty much all of learning in design, like I'm just grateful that there were people that were willing to teach me, like to like sit and explain something and kind of like show me what this tool does or that tool does. Like that's what I really have to thank in my learning experience.
Did you like go to like in school? Were you like the art kid? Were you like,
no, I never did a design class. I'm kind of just self-taught. Like I just kind of picked it up over time, just found it really compelling, and then I started working at that magazine, which is the first job I ever had, and it was like, well, the first job, and like that's where I like learned. Like I remember showing up thinking it was going to be an interview, and they told me to like sit down, and they're like, yeah, here's your desk, and yeah, you'll just work here on Mondays through Fridays. Like, oh
wow,
this is back in the day of free internships, yeah, unpaid.
That's a great, Joanne, that's a great thought. It's like math is the only thing that's the same in every language. Same thing with design. It's like design and math is the same. It's like cross-cultural.
It is.
Hey, you're speaking both universal languages. So. All right. Reaching a lull. Little lull.
If only there was some music to kick up.
There's some music playing in the background.
Oh, good.
You feel it?
Is it? Well, what is it?
Andrew? Huh? Who is it? Oh, is that what's happening right now?
Oh, good.
Oh, come on.
It really fits my aesthetic. I like it.
Is it Andrew Applepie? It's Andrew Applepie. You'll hear that name a lot. But he's awesome because it's good music. So shout out to him. All right, I think I'll actually show off some of these designs while you're working. Is that cool?
Yeah, that sounds great.
I'm going to kind of get these narrowed down. So again, just to recap, we have Shavams, which is awesome, a great texture. So this is definitely unsure whether this was made today or not. Obviously, this one was. It wasn't me, which I like that expression. So again, you can communicate a lot with.
I like the Shaggy reference. Yeah, it's real good.
Wasn't me. Sarah Holland, Cup of Joe. I like it. A little transparency with the lines. Cool Canadian emoji. This one's in my running.
Yeah, mine too.
This isn't like my top 5. Tickled pink, because why not? A bitten popsicle.
Which I really like. I love that gradient.
kind of makes you want to cringe because if I would have biting into a popsicle, sometimes like, oh.
Yeah, no thanks. But
Cold.
still, just be patient
This
with it.
Dorama by Carlos. I'm not sure if this is made today, but it's super cool. Love the dab, just because you can. And you don't have to post to Behance. You could really just send us a link. We appreciate Behance, though, as well. So thank you, Rodrigo. I love the waffle.
Yes, the waffle is really excellent.
Pretty tight.
I do, yeah. There's like even the more you zoom in, like little subtle color variations on that, like on the edge. Like I love the little shadows. I mean, I do really like that.
Very good.
Nice.
This is Olga's working mode. You gotta, you know, hats off, literally, to this mesh gradient is what it looks like. Laura's, she's going to just beat everybody by,
love that
by
it's a
sheer
system.
number.
Yeah, she's already building a system on it. That's really rad.
Avocado toast.
I like that little dimension there.
Little Ryans.
Feeling it.
Panda, panda,
awesome.
panda.
Yep.
That's Nadia's. Then we have, these are new. This is
Nice.
Mohan's, I think. Not sure if this is made today, but it's pretty tight. And then we have Krang LeBron.
That's so good. Yeah.
From Toby. So we'll get these narrowed down. Let's sort of like get it narrowed down to like top 5. And I'll have you pick.
I think that's fair. I think that's super fair.
Cool. And we have about 10 minutes, buddy. Good thing we have you for 3 days this week.
That's right. We're not done yet. So, you know, I'll keep going.
And don't worry, Julian, Heather, Paul, Alesso, Sarah, Hassan, Rakib, we have your entries. Just a matter of having time to show them. So many entries.
It's awesome.
I don't know if I can get to them.
Oh, this has been... We're definitely not printing.
Here's a latte emoji from Carolyn Brown.
Ooh, that's rad.
You know what this could use, though? Drop shadow.
Oh, yeah.
There's a shadow to show some depth.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
So.
There's rad. We're just doing the human randomizer right now where I'm just kind of dragging them to different places.
Sorry, I'm still reviewing these. Thank you. Abdul, I will look to see if we have yours. Scrolling. All right, yeah, I kind of stopped at Carolyn Brown, and all right, time to get these narrowed down.
Save.
Saving the file.
Did it.
So yeah, Jason, what was the size of the grid? Can you talk about that you set up?
Oh
initially?
yeah, so we're doing. That's always a good question. So we're doing grid lines every 80 with 10 subdivisions, which means that every single one of our little squares is 8 by 8 points. And for all intents and purposes, 8 by 8 pixels if you're going to bring it into Photoshop. Look at the little skyline there.
Trying to get these narrowed down. Yeah, so if you've submitted yours, yeah, we're keeping track. There's a long list of names that we still didn't get to. Actually, we were not expecting so many so early.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
Quite a few.
I mean, obviously people have been building stuff, which is awesome because it's like it's more fun to watch these and like just kind of build while we're doing stuff. So I think it's awesome.
And we're just, I mean, I think the key thing is we're trying to figure out if you guys made these today or not, or...
Yeah, honor system.
Yeah, that's like the hard part. This is getting pretty tough. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm not doing a very good job. All right, this is nice. Thank you, Nadia. Did the panda, which is super cute. All right. Trying to get these narrowed down, man. This is tough. I'm going to remove that one. All right, how you guys doing? Nadia, it's okay. You have all day. So if you feel a little rushed, you have all day, by the way, to submit something. You know, your odds might be better earlier on because there might be less entries. Who knows? Because everybody has the rest of the day, you know. Do you use a color guide in your workflow?
I don't. No, I am my own color guide.
All right, we have like 5 minutes left.
Are we choosing? Are we choosing?
Yeah, I think we should. I have it narrowed down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That is not the bargain that you struck with me. You said you'd narrow it down to 5.
This is so hard. Crying LeBron's awesome. I don't know if that's, like, I don't know how new that is. Avocado cooked toast is really cool, but that's just because I had it this morning and it was delicious. The, Olga, thank you so much. The working mode design one is, like, really pretty good, but they're also, like, they're also, like, you know, way to work it. Oh, man, this is hard. Bugs. I don't know if Shavam's is new, by the way. I don't... That's the hard part. It's not quite emoji enough is the problem with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
I think that's 6. A fair call then.
Right? Same thing with this one. I mean, this is cool. I just don't know if it's made today. Like, I'm having a tough time with that one. So. All right, I have it narrowed down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, buddy.
You ready?
Let's do this.
Eh?
Ah, cool Canadian emoji. Just because it's really fun.
I'm feeling really good about it. Yeah.
It just makes you smile.
It does.
You can't help it. Emoji waffle. Yeah. Appealing to the fact that we're just hungry right now.
I know.
But it's also really good.
It is really good.
Do you notice this shadow right here?
Right in there? I like the inset. Yeah.
So it's super sharp. This is, again, I'm doing this not because there's a Creative Cloud logo, but because of the hair. And I think it has nice gradient.
Yeah,
like
it
this
really
is
does.
There's a lot of detail in that area. Again, this is cute. It's fun, very simple, and then Crying LeBron still in there as well.
All right, do I get to choose, or is this a committee one where we both?
No, you get to choose. This is like your show. You get to break hearts.
I think for me it's the waffle. It really
All
is.
Right.
It feels right. I even like the darker parts of it. Looks like it's seeped more into it on the sides.
Yes.
I like the inset shadow. It feels right. It's it. It's
so
really
it doesn't have to be overly complex to win. This is Heidi Morrows. Congratulations,
Yay,
Heidi
Heidi.
Morrow. Please be here with us still in the chat. Please say that you're here.
Yeah.
And please tell us you had a delicious waffle. We're going to... Heidi, so just give us a shout out. We'd love to hear from you. You won Creative Cloud for a year. Don't worry, if we did not show yours, you still have a chance in this for our next segment with Kathleen and Julia. Zoavo is up next. Justin, did you have a good time, buddy?
I had such an
First
awesome
time
time.
in the flesh.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you
In
for
the
being
flesh.
here. You didn't have to. You could have done literally anything else. So thanks for being here.
I guess they didn't have a lot going on today.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
I'm glad.
They cleared their schedule and watched you. So thank you. You guys stick around. Stay here, by the way. This is being recorded. You'll join us tomorrow, 9 a.m.
I will.
PST. Julia's up next. So exciting. All right, guys. Thank you so much.